Ben, did you pack your toothbrush and your passport, your little neck pillow that looks like a hemorrhoid donut?
What?
Because Blind Duet is going international.
Yeah. Welcome to Blind Duet. If you're listening for the first time, each episode, we set two musicians up on a musical blind date. After meeting each other for the first time with us, they get 2 weeks to write and record an original piece of music together. This episode, we are featuring two artists in Europe. We've got Chris Aguilar in Andorra and Andy Glen in the UK. Tom, how do you know Andy and Chris?
So this is really fun. Chris was the very first person I met at undergrad. We both went to the University of Rochester, and Chris was my tour guide when I went to visit. So for real, like the very first person I met, and he is the best. And then in 2019, I went back to school for a master's at SOAS University of London, and Andy was starting his first year as the recording studio manager there and helped us all fumble our way through manipulating hundreds of thousands of dollars of delicate recording equipment. So just another excellent human being. And as you will hear, both of them have some really unique musical experience.
Yeah, these two guys are absolute pros, and it definitely shows in how great this song came out.
Before we meet Andy and Chris, two quick show notes. Ben, for our first recording with these two, you were solving a musical emergency, which is very nice of you. And you were able to join us towards the end and meet Chris and Andy briefly. But apologies, your cameo did not make the final edit. So it'll sound like just me, even though Ben was on the call.
All good. I'm glad that I just got to pop in and say hi.
We will catch you for the second interview for sure. Also, unfortunately, Chris's audio gets a little glitchy at some points. Sorry about that. He is definitely understandable all the way through, though.
All right, let's introduce Chris Aguilar and Andy Glen.
All right, so my name is Chris Aguilar. I am a singer-songwriter, and I play the guitar and the ukulele. I grew up in a very musical family. My mother's a Grammy-nominated artist, Platinum Award-winning as well. Her name is Alondra, and I grew up with music all my life. So I moved to Vienna, Austria, where shortly after moving there, I took part in a TV show called Pop Stars. And I ended up winning, which blew me away because, well, it was all in German, so I was freaking out. I didn't understand half of what they were telling me during the show. So I'm really happy to be doing this interview with you guys in English because I'm so used to doing everything in German, Spanish, Catalan. So finally, English. So we ended up winning a record contract with Sony Music, and we won some money and got to produce our album and did the tour, did everything that I dreamed of, which was crazy. Everything that I kind of dreamed of as a kid. Even being on these magazines, like the Teen Bop thing. My sister used to have Teen Bop, and I was like, wow, I want to be in this one day. That's how lame I am. And I ended up being on one in Austria. And so that was a crazy experience. And since then, it really taught me to work, be disciplined. My mom always taught me that as well. And with my mom's celebrity friends that I met, they always said the key to success is discipline. So I've always kind of been geared towards working my ass off with music, but having fun. I've also been in a band for 6 years in Vienna, here as well. So I live in Andorra. I live in Andorra la Vella, which is it's a principality between Spain and France. We're very lucky after all this madness that's happening with the pandemic to get all these really cool gigs. And yeah, that's kind of everything in a nutshell. I think, Tom, we were in a band together too. No Jackets Required. Didn't you play with me? Weren't you this as well?
Yeah.
We did. Do you remember?
I believe we had one song together. No Jackets. Yeah. It was like this weird. It was like this collective where if you were just learning your instrument, it was like that's cool. It was really inclusive. Everybody welcome. And I believe we performed Susie Q. By Credence. And I also believe it turned into a salsa track, and you sang one verse in Spanish. It was awesome. Yeah. Andy, if I can ask you to introduce yourself the same way, full name, instruments, and then really how you identify yourself and a few words of your background.
Sure. So my name's Andy Glen. I originally trained as an actor, several years ago at the Royal Conservatoire of Scotland, and then got myself into doing voiceovers for TV and radio. And I was doing musicals, stage shows. I went to Russia to do a film. And then I just sort of realized that, the acting game wasn't for me. I sort of got it out of my system, and then sort of made this progression to the other side of the glass. Audio was really the sort of the channel that I really wanted to tap into. So I applied to go and do an MA at Abbey Road Studios. They have an institute there. So I was fortunate enough to get in, and spent a year there, and then this position came up at SOAS to be a studio manager there and an educator, and I thought, yeah, that's something meaningful. I've recently, in the last year, moved out of London, and I'm now in a place in Kent, which is quite near France. And yeah, I used to be in a band. I was the lead singer of a band called Northern Light Exposure. So I sort of identify myself as a songwriter, guitarist, singer, but mainly these days as a producer. And I just really get my sort of kicks out of producing other people's music. And I think it's a real, I'm not going to use the word challenge, but it's really exhilarating to realize the sound that's in a musician's head and be able to sort of bring that to life.
Something that I'm glad you both brought up is how much music is really a part of your identity. And it seems like, music is at the core of who you are, and it's your life's work. And Chris, you come from a very musical family. It seems like music and family have long been fused together for you in your environment. I'm hoping you could share how that has informed you as a musician, what it was like growing up surrounded by artistry.
Definitely. I mean, I think both in the technical, but also in the professional way. I mean, just seeing, so my mom was the madrina, or like the godmother of Ricky Martin and of Menudo. So she used to go on tour, and he used to open for her concerts back in the day. And so she always kind of knew that I loved to sing, and she always was afraid of me going into this field. So she kind of, until she finally saw, okay, Chris is gonna do this. This is like his passion. But she instilled in me kind of this, like I said before, this discipline and working hard and becoming educated. And I'm really grateful for that. She's, I think, my biggest role model. So when I sing now with my band, I often invite my sister or my mom to also perform. And that's when the people react the most, because they see kind of this unity. They see just having their support, having their example, for me is important. And it's a very big mark for us in our identity as a family. They always call us the Partridge Family because we're always singing together.
I guess that's what music should be about. It's all about collaboration, isn't it? I mean, music for me, it's all about pushing against something. Now, that could be in your lyrics. Are you pushing against society or government or something like that? But that in itself, you need to have something to push against as an artist, because without that, you really don't have a voice. I remember doing a record with a producer called Youth, who's worked with Paul McCartney. He did the last Pink Floyd record, The Endless River. And, he was forever trying to get all of like the guys in my band, like to get their backs up, to actually like create some tension between us, because we all got on really well. I mean, he told me like stories, and I hope I can say it on this podcast, but when he was recording Crowded House, he got the whole band to take their clothes off and actually perform
everything
naked, and validation for that. Well, I'm not actually going to tell that story, but one of the guitarists actually got their guitar caught in their nether regions, and got really sort of excited about like doing this power chord, and was like, So
it's like the worst nightmare of any guitarist.
Well, yeah, and so I think this is the role of the producer as well. They are the person at the helm of the ship that is steering everything. my wife's a novelist, and we talk a lot about being midwives of art. Yeah. So we're actually carrying this through into its fruition and sort of realizing that. And I think that's a lovely image to sort of have. I'm not the artist, even though I play on the record, I'm just there to facilitate, but I'm delivering this baby to the world, you know?
Whether you speak a different language, whatever it is, if you are able to feel what you're singing or producing or making, and kind of show that, it allows people to connect with you. And it's such a vulnerable thing. It's such a scary thing, because I got to do this whole boy band pop star thing. It was not fulfilling. I wanted to write my own songs in the album, and the Sony people were like, "Oh, yeah, we already have your producers. They're writing everything. You can't cut your hair. You can't gain weight. You can't change the image or the image of our brand." And we were stuck with them for like a year. So I grew, and I loved the experience. But one of the Sony people, she's really sweet. She told me, "Chris, after this, do your own thing, write your own music, but be true to yourself, and never put out something that's not who you are."
As musicians, we are vulnerable, and we do put ourselves on the table, in terms of our emotions. But I always say, when people say to me, "Why do you do music?" There's not necessarily a lot of money in music, but it's the same reason why I decided to be an actor, because I had to. It's who I am. That's the only way that I can really express myself in this world, is through music and art and talking in those analogies.
Oftentimes, as an artist, I've found, I've had to really face the skeletons in the closet, or things that you have to come to terms with. For me, I identify as gay, so I'm part of the LGBTQIA+ family, and I had a really rough time when I was at the top of my career in Vienna with pop stars. I wasn't out, and based a bit of what I had heard of, like, "Oh, well, your fan group is these girls from this age to this age, maybe you shouldn't, you should come out, you should be a little careful with that." It really affected me. And I feel like it really stunted my creativity in a way. And now that I embrace it fully, and I'm like not apologetic at all about how I identify and everything, I feel like it's really allowed me to create much more easily and much more freely, and really not be afraid to not doubt myself so much as well.
What do we have if we're not honest about what we're actually saying,
Exactly.
in our music,
I wanted to rewind quickly because I think it's so interesting that you both are representing what I see as two sides of the same coin, where, Chris, you are very much motivated by your family ties, your sense of love for your mom and your sister, and being able to make music with them is what's really powerful and motivating and freeing. Andy, what motivates you is pushing against something. And I don't know if you use the word fighting something. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but
I didn't use the word fighting, but that could be used as a force for good.
Right. And like music with purpose almost. And I think it's so interesting that you are representing, at the core, it's emotion, music as a vehicle to express. And so I just wanted to highlight that, because I think it's really cool that you're coming from, it's almost like you're coming from two different places, but arriving at the same point, which I think is really
because the thing that's really important is that music has to be an event. Yeah, there is no point in music just being a representation of the song, that you play the song and, oh yeah, you hit the chorus. I mean, it's got to be an event. It's got to like hit you. We are saturated with so much music nowadays that as an artist, you're asking your audience, you're saying to them, well, I say to the artist, why should people give a shit about your music? Honestly, why should they care?
Yeah.
So you've got to give people a reason to listen.
I totally agree with you, man, because and Hector, my buddy I do music with, it's like it's not about like making a song that's like, oh, you're gonna become the next Justin Bieber, be famous, whatever. It should be about the love, like making music because it fulfills you, because you connect with other people. We always joke around, Hector, like if we could it doesn't matter if it's like a sold out arena, even if we do like a room of 200 people and these people are hardcore loving and digging what we do and we connect with them, like that is amazing.
Chris, I have got one out of the box question for you here, which is that someone who knows you very well mentioned that you were once obsessed with the Tarzan soundtrack.
I was a big fan of Phil Collins. I still am.
Okay.
I think he's great. Yeah.
I'm just curious, what about that album speaks to you?
Going back to what we were saying, I feel that soundtrack very emotive. I think at the age that I guess I was like 9 or 10, maybe younger. It freaked me out because I was like, wow, he's singing everything I'm feeling. This is amazing. And I just love Phil Collins. I'm lucky that I have, I'm with my band now. We're called Neon. And we do this 80s, we're really into the 80s. So we have a big 80s obsession. So it's new. We do our own stuff. But my brother, Hector, he's like my brother. He's amazing. He's a big fan also, Phil Collins, Toto, all this stuff. And so I guess I've always really liked this sound.
Preparing for this podcast, I was sort of thinking, well, I've got my little sort of bag of things
goodies
that I've been sort of working on before. But I mean, I can do programming, I can play bass. So yeah, I would love to sort of come out the track maybe quite organically. I know that sounds really cheesy and boring, but just maybe I actually think a really good way to start is for us after this podcast to maybe just have a conversation with each other and just ask each other about our sort of musical influences. I mean, I'm a big 80s guy. You're a big 80s guy as well. So I wonder where our paths sort of cross over in that regard. I mean, I'm a big Peter Gabriel fan.
Ooh, nice.
So
me too.
maybe Genesis is like the place that we sort of meet.
There you go. See, Phil Collins.
Phil Collins, Genesis. So yeah, I mean, I'm along with programming. I'm good on bringing synths together. So something maybe like this. I've got loads of string libraries. If that's something that you were thinking on.
Yeah, the best. Well, thank you again. And like I said, we can't wait. This is going to be awesome. So really appreciate it.
Cool.
Thank you, man.
Take it easy.
All right.
Good night. See you. Bye.
All right, that was our first interview with Chris and Andy. Ben, what did you think?
Man, it was so great getting to meet those guys, even if it was only for a second as I was driving home. Again, my apologies for the mix-up in my schedule, but thanks a lot for taking the lead on that first part.
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to say how incredibly lucky we are because all of our musical guests so far have gone way above and beyond. As you will hear, Chris and Andy spent a ton of time on this track. It's inspiring, and like you said before, it shows.
Yeah, something cool about this one, too, is that this is actually the first pair that took an existing idea that one of them had started, and they kind of fleshed it out together. We haven't heard that yet on Blind Duet, so I'm happy they chose that route. All right, let's catch up with Chris and Andy after 2 weeks of work on their song, Chasing Shadows.
Ben and I have we've been on for the last half an hour, actually. We just couldn't stop listening to the track and like picking out parts that we like. There are a bunch of moments in this track that we're obsessed with. To kick things off, first, I think it would just be great if y'all could share some thoughts. I would love to start with Chris on the nature of this project, of meeting Andy for the first time and creating some art together with it in the rearview mirror. What are your reflections right now?
This really taught me a lot about myself, about the process, and how to get out of my comfort zone.
I'm kind of a basic bitch when it comes to like writing songs because I always do like this same kind of structure. And I guess we'll get more into this in the interview. But I really loved collaborating with Andy because he really like he put it really well in one of our catch up calls. He's like, yeah, I'm not a huge fan of choruses, so I like to do this and this and put this here.
I love that. Thank you. And Andy, same question. Just any big headline reflections from the past 2 weeks and working with Chris?
So I guess the starting point for this is, after we had that initial interview, I haven't written a song for over 2 years, right? Before I was probably knocking out about at least 5 ideas a month, right? Which might actually be quite slim. But the main takeaway is that I loved bouncing sort of ideas off of Chris. I had some sort of unfinished material or just sort of ideas that I put down as a sort of rough demo. And, I haven't opened up these sessions for over 2 years. And I was like, that's a really interesting one. And there was a whole sort of sentiment behind this that I didn't want to tell Chris about. So when we had our catch-up call, I said, look, I've got this rough thing that I did. It didn't really go anywhere. Because, that is one of the hardest things. I love the process of this because I've actually been able to finish a song and, actually been under pressure to sort of meet a deadline and to hit that deadline. To be honest, yesterday I was like, there is no way I'm going to hit this deadline, tomorrow, because I sort of went down into to meltdown at one stage, and I started picking the whole track apart, and I was like, "Oh my god, how do I put this back together again?" But yeah, being two complete strangers, we actually had so much in common.
Yeah, that was crazy,
and it was actually quite scary where our crossovers met, and I think we actually pulled them together, or we pulled one out of the hat, Chris. In this song, but I'll let you talk a bit more about that.
Yes, I love this kind of thing. It was crazy. The first time we caught up, we found out we were in musicals, in some of the same musicals.
I was in one musical.
Okay.
I hate
me too.
musicals.
But we hate musicals. Yeah, we both hate them, but we were in them. Yeah, so we both did Spring Awakening. I was Melchior. I think he was Moritz.
I was Moritz Stiefel. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, Moritz Stiefel, and we talked about Blood Brothers because I was in Blood Brothers as well.
That's the only musical that I like, Blood Brothers.
And the crazy one is one of our other catch-up calls. So Andy sent me this track. He said, "Yo, I have this kind of track that I've been working on, but I didn't finish it. And do you wanna work on this one?" I said, "Yeah, let's do it." So he sends it to me, and I'm just listening to it nonstop, right? And listening, and I love the chords. I love the whole feel, the whole vibe of it, because it's this like melancholy kind of nostalgia. I got this kind of like haunting vibe. Yeah, I was like, this is really haunting. And one of the things that I learned about this whole process, I'm gonna stay up till like 4 a.m. because 3 to 4 a.m. is when all the good shit comes out. It's crazy. I was sitting in front of a piece of paper since like 8 o'clock or even before that. And it wasn't until I was like dead tired and about to pass out from being so tired that all these like melodies and ideas just start popping into my head. Shooting star, a moth and flame, consumed by staking claim of what was never meant to be.
That 3 to 4 a.m. I think that's actually like a psychological thing that they talk about, where you're most creative right before you go to sleep and right when you wake up in the morning. Those are like the two times where I guess maybe you're just uninhibited by any other thoughts, anything else. You haven't gotten distracted yet,
Maybe it's, that's it. And you don't hear this inner saboteur that's kind of telling you like, oh, this sucks, or like, you're not going to make it. I really appreciated that Andy kind of gave me the space to be creative, like not being like, yo, Chris, this is going to be the lead melody. This is what I came up with. Like, I just appreciated that I had like that space to be creative and not have that influence over the song.
Yeah. And in terms of the actual process, it was completely bare. It was a really bare track that I sent you. It was like 2 guitar parts, probably played on 1 string by me, and then some like drum programming and like a bass line. So once Chris had actually sung me the top line, I kind of then had a sort of clear direction how I could support his vocal, rather than just like putting a whole bunch of stuff in the track and then just like hoping that his sort of melody would like harmonize with like what I had in the key. So I mean, to be honest, I probably threw the kitchen sink in there and spent the rest of the week trying to like take all the stuff out and say, well, what do we actually need? There was actually certain elements of your vocal that I took out. I think there was 2 parts.
I like that. Yeah.
And the reason for that was that I felt like we were showing our hand, like right at the start of the song, and I felt that there needed to be more space there to tell a story, like an abstract story.
Yes.
But
grow,
to actually have some progression in the song, rather than like, these are all my cards right at the start.
No.
And yeah,
brilliant. I heard that and I was like, he's right. I don't have to sing everything the first go. You could do part of it, kind of preview, and then later on you finish the thought. And
when I'm writing anything, or even when I'm producing other people's music, it's like, how can you hold the interest? You're inviting the listener to listen to your song out of the millions and billions of other songs that they could be listening to. So how long are you actually going to hold their attention for? And if you can keep them guessing by doing sort of clever trickery with the structure of the song. I'm really into the band Interpol, who's from New York.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And Tom and I totally grew up on that band. Like,
oh yeah,
I mean, loved them. Yeah.
And we were playing, we wanted to sound like Interpol.
Oh yeah, who doesn't? I wanted to sound like Interpol. But like the thing that I learned from really sort of like analyzing their music is they just cut the fat. When you get to the end of like the chorus, they don't take another 4 or 8 bars to get into verse 2. It's like, they come out of the chorus 1, 2, and then they're in the next verse. And it's like, and that's what makes it like punchy. Chris actually sang like I think it was the bridge part that it's the line, on and on, the ghosts, they keep on haunting me.
Yeah. The bridge,
forgive me, I can't remember the lyric. And
I guess I'm the fool who broke the rule and answered back.
I love that line. Right?
Really? When you took it out, I was like, man, he hates it.
No.
When I first listened to it.
I love that line. And in actual fact, by taking it out, it actually makes it stronger when we hear it later in the song, because it gives more resonance and it gives more weight to it, I think.
Ben and I both picked that out as a favorite moment. And Ben, you wanted to dive a little bit deeper on the chords. Yeah, Benny?
Yeah. So like right there, right? If I'm not mistaken, right there is when it switches to A. It goes to A. So the chord is A minor.
Yeah.
Right there. And it's like the 2 minor, because we're in G pretty much, even though, that I wanted to talk about as well. We don't really get G until the very end of the song, which I think is super cool. When it goes to that A minor, I felt like the whole song is building to that point. And when it gets to that A minor, not only is it a new lyric, like you were mentioning, some new words that really we can key in and listen to, but that chord change for me just like, it melts your inside a little bit right there. When you hear that A minor, that 2 minor is always just kind of when you're waiting for it like that,
Yeah.
So nice.
So,
and you incorporated the synths to give it that 80s feel, which is awesome.
Well, yeah, because we talked about that. I don't know if we talked about it on the episode or just when we were talking ourselves, and we were saying that we both love 80s music. It's more that sort of synthy, fat sound. But yeah, I mean, as Ben was saying, you know, after you get to that A minor and the track really sort of picks up, and all those elements that have been introduced earlier in the song suddenly all come together. So that's the thing that I was talking about, the sort of interlocking of the cogs. You know, all these bits are sort of doing their thing, and you can still sort of make them out, but they're sort of coming into this harmonious gluing together.
I always am looking for a feeling when I'm listening to music, and when I'm going back to stuff, it is to feel that feeling.
And I don't feel that we talk about that enough in music, that we're listening to music because it gives you that feel, or you know, you can get into the whole memory thing of, oh yeah, you know, I mean, Spotify constantly spit songs out to you from like your youth, and you're like, oh my god, do you remember that song by Betty McLean?
Or it could just be like Ben said, a rhythmic change, or like a key change, or something that kind of ignites some kind of chemistry in your brain that you're like, wow, that was cool, I want to hear it again. It could be also just that as well.
Yeah, but we all make music because we want people to feel something, you know?
Right. Yeah.
Like
totally.
make it, I mean, you know, that's my big rules. Make it an event and make someone feel something, even if they don't like it. Make them feel that they don't like it, you know?
And it applies to lyrics as well, right? So your favorite artist, if there's a line that really hits home because you're going through that same experience, or kind of is an enlightening moment for you. And as somebody who writes lyrics, you want that as well. You want people to also kind of connect and be like, yeah, I totally get what that line is about. I feel the same way, or I'm thinking about the same thing. So like you said, telling a story, connecting, making it an event. I totally agree. That's also with lyrics. That's a very important part as well.
Andy, for folks listening to the podcast, if they want to hear more of you and your work, whether it's originals, whether it's productions that you are really proud of, where can folks hear you more?
People can check out my website, andrewglen.co.uk. I've got a list of the records I've worked on. There's a new record which I did, which took almost 3 years to make, mainly because the artist was away on tour. So a shameless plug for that. Her name is Astrid Williamson, and the album is called Into the Mountain. That is out now. The latest single is called Ingratitude, which is kind of like my favorite track on the record. I don't use social media these days. I'm what they call a geriatric millennial. So I try and avoid it like the plague. But yeah, if you want to get in touch and say hi, you can contact me through my website.
Sweet. Thank you so much, Chris. Same question. Where can people hear you?
You can hear my German album my German speaking album on Spotify. I can send you a link, Tom. It's Kilmokit. Also on Instagram, and for my new band Neon, we're on neonmusic.net.
Chris, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Same to you. Thank you, man. Really enjoyed it.
I almost want to do it again.
Yeah, me too.
Adios,
care,
good night, and
bye, guys.
All right,
Bye.
see you. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much to everyone for listening, and huge thanks to Chris and Andy for all their hard work. Chasing Shadows sounds amazing.
As I mentioned, sometimes Chris's audio was a little glitchy during these interviews, and there was one important piece of news that didn't come through clear. I just want to share it now. Chris and his band Neon recently won a national Christmas songwriting contest in Andorra.
Yeah, that's insane. So cool.
So definitely check out Chris's Instagram, his band's page, to listen to Tornare, which means I'll return, the official 2021 Christmas song of Andorra. That is wild.
So wild. Okay, let's do it. Here is Chasing Shadows by Andy Glen and Chris Aguilar.
falling in love. Those days are gone and things are not the same. We never talk anymore. Drowning in the hourglass, can't seem to shake the past because it keeps on haunting me. On and on the ghosts, they keep on calling me. It's unexpected and it shakes me to my core when my thoughts go back to where we were before. Why do I still think of you? Do you think about us too? On and on the ghosts, they keep on calling me. And I guess I'm the fool who broke the rule and answered back. Chasing shadows of the past when forever doesn't last, never reaching clarity. A shooting star, a moth in flame, consumed by staking claim of what was never meant to be. On and on and on, they keep on and on and on, they keep on and on and on, they keep on calling me. On and on and on, they keep on and on and on, they keep on and on and on. The ghosts keep calling me. Chasing shadows of the past when forever doesn't last, never reaching clarity. A shooting star, a moth to flame, consumed by staking claim of what was never meant to be, never ever meant to be.
Follow Blind Duet on Instagram and Twitter at Blind Duet Pod. If you would like to be a guest on our show, please send a brief bio along with links to your work to blindduetpod@gmail.com. We look forward to hearing from you. Blind Duet is brought to you in part by the New Orleans Tourism and Culture Fund. We would also like to thank the Music and Culture Coalition of New Orleans for their support.